Hello, and welcome to our short webinar on understanding the autistic spectrum. This webinar is based on our Level 2 award that we deliver to our professional care staff. We've adapted it for you as informal carers and hope that you find the information useful. The aim of the webinar is simple: to try and make sure that you have the knowledge and confidence to help support the person you care for who might have autistic spectrum conditions. We always try to have some learning outcomes in all of our webinars. In this way, you can be clear about what we hope that you will learn. Today's learning outcomes are simple. 1. To explain autistic spectrum disorder. 2. To explain how autistic spectrum disorder affects the way a person communicates and relates to people around them. 3. To explain the behaviours exhibited by some people with autistic spectrum disorder. And 4. To explain methods of supporting a person with autistic spectrum disorder. So, what is autistic spectrum disorder, or ASD? Autism is a lifelong developmental disability that affects how a person communicates with and relates to other people in the world around them. It is a spectrum condition, which means that while all people with autism share certain areas of difficulty, their condition will affect them in different ways. Aspergers Syndrome is a form of autism. Many people have traits of the condition without having autism. The word spectrum is used because while all people with autism share three main areas of difficulty, their condition will affect them in very different ways. Some are able to live relatively everyday lives, others will require a lifetime of specialist support. Autism is a spectrum of neurodevelopmental conditions characterized by difficulties in the development of social relationships and communication skills, in the presence of unusually strong narrow interests, repetitive behavior, and difficulties in coping with unexpected change. Two major subgroups are recognized: classic autism and Asperger's Syndrome. Classic autism also typically involves associated learning difficulties such as below average IQ and language delay. Asperger's Syndrome, or AS, shares the features of autism but without the associated learning difficulties and without any language delay. So, let's have a look at Asperger's Syndrome. Asperger's Syndrome has often been characterized as eccentric behavior rather than as a disability. Many people with Asperger's Syndrome lead active and productive lives in many occupations such as teaching. The behaviour of some people with Asperger's Syndrome is sometimes seen as strange because of a lack of social skills. People with Asperger's Syndrome are often obsessive about complex subjects. This also leads us to what is sometimes known as high-functioning autism. Some people are diagnosed with high-functioning autism, or HFA, while others are diagnosed with Asperger's Syndrome, or AS. Both people with high-functioning autism and Asperger's Syndrome are affected by the Triad of Impairments common to all people with autism. Both groups are likely to be of average or above average intelligence, and the debate as to whether we need two diagnostic terms is ongoing. However, there may be features such as age of onset, language delay, and motor skill deficits which differentiate the two conditions. I mentioned the Triad of Impairments common to all people with autism. What do we mean by that? Quite simply, there are three main areas of difficulty which all people with autism share. These are sometimes known as the Triad of Impairments. They are: 1. Difficulty with social communication. 2. Difficulty with social interaction. And 3. Difficulty with social imagination. Let's have a look first at social communication. Communication for people on the autistic spectrum can be difficult as there is often confusion between what is said and what is heard. There can also be difficulty understanding facial expressions and tone of voice, difficulty understanding sarcasm and jokes, and difficulty understanding social context and regulating responses and behaviour. There can be speech differences as well. There may be a lack of tone and volume. People might be unable to change pitch and rhythm. Speech can be often high-pitched, monotonous, maybe have a nasal tone, or lack of change to indicate emotion. And now we come to social interaction. People with autism may have difficulty understanding others' emotions and feelings. They may have difficulty expressing their own emotions and feelings. They may have problems with unwritten social rules. It may feel like they lack empathy or sensitivity. And there may be strange, naive, or inappropriate attempts at social behaviour. People with autism can also have difficulties in areas of social imagination. What does that mean? Well, they may have difficulty with coping with new and unfamiliar situations, difficulty with predicting behaviour and events, difficulty with understanding danger, difficulty with engaging in joint play. They often see the world in black and white. They cannot see abstracts, but they can also be very creative. So what are the characteristics of autism? It's a truism to say that if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. Each and everybody is different, but alongside the Triad of Impairments, the following may also be true. People with autism may love rituals and routines, may have inflexibility of thought and a resistance to change, may have special interests, may have sensory sensitivities. They might have difficulties with cognitive function. They might have challenging behaviours, high levels of anxiety, dyspraxia, or learning disabilities. Sensory sensitivity can affect all 7 senses. It can involve sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, balance, and body awareness. People can be oversensitive or hypersensitive, or undersensitive or hyposensitive. We have receptors all over our bodies that pick up sensory information or stimuli. Our hands and feet contain the most receptors. Most of the time we process sensory information automatically without needing to think about it that much. People with sensory integration difficulties, including many people with an ASD, have difficulty processing everyday sensory information. People who struggle to deal with all of this information are likely to become stressed or anxious and possibly feel physical pain. Let's look at a couple of these senses in a little bit more detail. Let's take sight. People with an ASD may experience the following differences. For those who are undersensitive, objects can appear dark or lose some of their features. Central vision is blurred, but peripheral vision may be quite sharp. A central object is magnified, but things on the periphery are blurred. There might be poor depth perception, problems with throwing and catching, clumsiness for instance. For those who are oversensitive, there may be distorted vision. Objects and bright lights can appear to jump around. Images may fragment. So what about sound? This is the most commonly recognised form of sensory impairment. Hearing impairments can affect someone's ability to communicate and possibly also their balance. People with an ASD may experience the following differences. For those who are hyposensitive, they may only hear sounds in one ear, the other ear having only partial hearing or none at all. They may not acknowledge particular sounds. Some might enjoy crowded, noisy places or banged doors and objects. For those that are hypersensitive, noise can be magnified and sounds become distorted and muddled. They can be particularly sensitive to sound and can, for example, hear conversations in the distance. There may be an inability to cut out sounds, noticeably background noise, which often leads to difficulties concentrating. If the person you care for has sensory sensitivity, there are a few points worth remembering. Firstly, be aware. Look at the environment to see if it is creating difficulties for people with an ASD. Can you change anything? Secondly, be creative. Think of some positive sensory experiences. And thirdly, be prepared. Tell people with an ASD about possible sensory stimuli they may experience in different environments. Let's talk a little bit about inflexibility. People with ASD may have restricted areas of interest. They may exhibit rituals and routines. They may have repetitive motor behaviours. They may have difficulty with transitions. Rituals and routines patterns of behaviour regularly performed in a specific sequence with no obvious function. People with ASD can be very rigid and always want to do things the same way at the same time. For example, flicking the lights on and off 7 times when entering a room. Since life tends to include change, expecting things to remain the same can cause trouble for the person with autism and for those around him or her. One of the reasons persons with ASD like to watch videos or DVDs so much is that they are the same every time. The same people, the same actions, the same voices, the same order. Nothing changes. They are predictable. Routines are about being able to predict what will happen during the day, how long each activity will last for, and what happens next. People with ASD often find the structure of a rigid timetable very comforting and can become very anxious if something within that changes. For example, if a doctor's appointment replaces the regular Monday morning swimming trip. Routines, of course, have a purpose. They allow for security. They allow for stability, predictability, and because of this, they allow for interest and enjoyment. Find out the routine that works for the person you're caring for, rather than trying to fit the person into existing routines. It's really important to try and support routines. Take a person-centred approach. Make sure there's consistency. Use diaries, calendars and timetables. Look at PECs. We'll discuss this a bit in a moment. And inform people of changes, when and how a routine will change and when it will go back to normal. As I said before, find out the routine that works for the person rather than trying to fit the person into existing routines. Use those diaries, timetables and things like that to help people with ASD to know what to expect. And if something does have to change, make sure they know when the routine will go back to normal. For example, a doctor's appointment gets scheduled in the morning, meaning that a regular swimming session can't happen. However, from lunchtime onwards, the daily routine will go back to exactly the way it usually is. Although people with ASD need things to remain the same as far as possible, they still need to have opportunities to learn. However, the way that learning is structured makes a huge difference. PECS, I mentioned it previously, is the Picture Exchange Communication System, a system of picture cards that can be exchanged for the object they represent, for example a biscuit, and they can be used to build sentences. Always remember to use the person's name. A person with ASD may not know you mean them if you give instructions to everyone. Provide some structure. People with ASD can struggle greatly with unstructured time. So it tends to work better for them all if aspects of the learning activity come with a set of instructions, as opposed to use the next 30 minutes to explore the subject. Give precise instructions and don't expect the person to generalise from one instruction, for example, wipe your feet when you come in from the garden, is likely to result in feet being wiped only when coming in from the garden and not from the street. Consistency is important too. If the person spends time in different environments, the same rules and systems, such as PECs, need to be used. Computers tend to work well for people with ASD. They're logical and they're predictable. So, just to reiterate, use visual materials such as PECs or objects of reference. Use signs such as Makaton. Gain the person's attention, but do not expect or force eye contact. Use the person's name. Provide structure, give precise instructions, and keep those instructions brief and simple. So, how can we support that learning? Let's remember, reduce distractions. Make adjustments for sensory sensitivities when you can. Be consistent. Let people know how long tasks will take. Use special interests as a reward or to give a break from learning, and use computers. I just want to say a few things about some of the challenging behaviours that can be exhibited by people with ASD. Just briefly, I'm going to talk about pica, smearing, spitting, hitting, slapping, pinching and biting. Pica is a compulsive eating disorder in which people eat non-food items. There could be a number of possible reasons for this. The individual might not understand which items are edible and inedible. They may be seeking out sensory input, the texture or taste of the item. And of course, they may be relieving anxiety or stress. With smearing, it may be that they're feeling unwell or in pain. They may be reluctant to wipe because toilet paper may be too harsh. They may be seeking out sensation from texture, smell, or movement of arms during the smearing action. They may want attention. They may be seeking a reaction. They may not know where the feces need to go. They may be scared of toilets. Spitting could be because they enjoy the reaction from those around them. They may have difficulty swallowing or they may be producing too much saliva. It may be that they like to play with the saliva and enjoy the way it feels. They may be using the behaviour to avoid doing something. Hitting, slapping, pinching, biting, it may be due to frustration at not being able to communicate. Maybe difficulty waiting for something. Maybe an unfamiliar person, a change in routine that's leading to anxiety. I want to look briefly at anxiety, as this can be a concern for people caring for someone with ASD. You'll probably recognise the psychological symptoms of anxiety, such as someone who easily loses their patience, has difficulty concentrating, is thinking constantly about the worst outcome, has difficulty sleeping, may have depression, and can become preoccupied with or obsessive about one subject. But of course, there are also the physical symptoms of anxiety, including excessive thirst, stomach upsets, loose bowel movements, frequent urinating, periods of intensely pounding heart, period of having gas even, muscle aches, dizziness, pins and needles, tremors. Anxiety can be a very difficult thing for people with ASD. Here are some strategies for managing anxiety. You can keep a diary, create a meltdown prevention plan, think about relaxation techniques, and also talk about anxiety. To help someone with autism understand anxiety, get them to understand the symptoms they display when they're anxious and to look at the causes of their anxiety. Keeping a diary in which they write about certain situations and how these make them feel may help them to understand their anxiety and manage it better. Use the diary also to think about the physical changes linked to anxiety. Someone with autism often retreats into their particular interest if they're anxious about something. Use the diary to monitor this as well. Create an anxiety plan when someone with autism is feeling positive about things. An anxiety plan is a list of things and situations that cause anxiety, as well as solutions and strategies they can use to help them manage their anxiety levels. So, for instance, the situation might be going on the bus. The symptoms of anxiety might be a heartbeat fast, sweating, feeling sick. Those strategies. How about having a stress ball in the pocket, squeeze the ball and take deep breaths, or listen to music? Someone without autism can find it very difficult to relax. Some people with autism have a particular interest or activity they like to do because it helps them to relax. If they use these to relax, it may help them to build it into their daily routine. However, this interest or activity can itself be the source of behavioural difficulties at times, especially if they're unable to follow their interest or do the activity at a particular moment. Some people may need to be left alone for short periods of the day to help them unwind. Physical activity can also often help to manage anxiety and release tension. Using deep breathing exercises to relax can be helpful, as can activities such as yoga and Pilates, which both focus on breathing to relax. Use a visual timetable or write a list to help remind the person when they need to practice relaxation. Any other activities that are pleasant and calming, such as taking a bath, listening to relaxing music, aromatherapy, playing on a computer, may also help reduce anxiety. Some people may find lights particularly soothing, especially those of a repetitive nature such as spinning lights or bubble tubes. I just want to mention dyspraxia briefly. Dyspraxia can affect a person with ASD. It's a lifelong condition which affects a person's coordination and movement. These can be large limb movement problems such as running, throwing, catching, but they can also be fine movement issues such as tying shoelaces and doing up buttons. Some of the common difficulties that someone with dyspraxia may experience include difficulty in picking up small objects, especially in younger children, not being able to complete jigsaws or to sort games out properly, difficulty in holding a pencil or handwriting, difficulty in understanding prepositions such as in or on or behind, an inability to sort out shapes or toys effectively, difficulty in using a knife and fork, and confusion and changing between the use of their right and left hand. This has been a very brief look at autism and ASD. We hope you found it useful. There is support available to you both locally and nationally, and a great deal of information. If you'd like to know more about what is available in the local area, please do contact us to see how we can help you further. Thanks for taking the time to watch this webinar.